You're probably going to ask me what would be the most optimal. Let's say you've got you respect time and you want to get the most bang for your buck and you want efficiency in the gym for bicep training. What pieces of equipment would give you the best bang for your buck? Would it be free weight? Would it be machines? Would it be cables? Good day guys, Coach Troy Brand, IFBB Pro, apexphysiques.ca, your go-to resource for physique development. We're in the basement today, we're in my man cave, and I've been working on some ideas for you. I want to bring up your biceps. I know it's a muscle that you really want to bring up. I did a poll on Instagram the other day and I asked, what muscle group do you need more of? And the poll came through and it basically showed that everybody wanted to bring their arms up. So here's the thing, I'm in the hypertrophy world and I don't really know a lot of men that really want to make their arms smaller. Most of us want our arms to be bigger. So I thought, while I'm in the man cave, I'm just sitting on my desk, I thought, why not just do a quick video and show you guys what I come up with in order to build up your biceps. Now you've got to be a little bit patient with me. This is the first time I've actually done something like this before, but the goal is to give you something tangible that you can take to the gym with you and start using it in every single bicep training session that you do. So when it comes to muscle building, right, we've always got to go back to anatomy first. So please sit through this part here, because this part's really important when it comes to building muscle, right? We've got to understand anatomy. So let's look at the bicep. Obviously this is the bicep brachii here, and as you know, it has two heads, right? You've got the long head on the outside here, and then you've got the short head, which is on the inside. Now the thing about these heads, the origin of the long head here originates at the supraglenoid fossa, the glenohumeral joint, where the ball attaches to the scapula. And then you've got the short head here, originates at the coracoid process. It comes together to form a single belly called the bicep brachii, and at the distal end of the bicep, right, the insertion, there's two tendons. One tendon, which is the tuberosity of the radius, and the other tendon is kind of like a flat tendon-like sheath called the bicipial upper neurosis. And what's interesting about this sheath tendon that runs across the forearm flexors, what's interesting about it, when you are in a supinated position, right, you're taking a dumbbell, let's say an arbitrary dumbbell, and when you curl, this sheath here on the forearm flexors is tight. When you go into a pronated position, what it does is that it basically allows the bicep brachii to disengage, so you put more tension on the brachyradialis, right? If we're looking at elbow flexion, right, we've got to look at the three muscles. I've just talked about the bicep brachii. We have to look at the brachyradialis, and we also have to look at the brachialis as well. So the thing about the bicep brachii and the brachyradialis, these are superficial muscles, and the brachialis, which is this one here, is actually hidden. And if you're looking at the EMG, which is the electromyography, the thing about the EMG is that it actually finds it very hard to pick up the brachialis, but whereas the bicep brachii and brachyradialis are actually easier to pick up on the EMG. So what they've shown in the studies, and I don't know if this is really true or not, but what is shown in the research is that when you curl, whether you do supination, whether you do neutral with a hammer curl, or you do pronation, the brachialis is always active no matter what you're doing. If you're doing neutral, pronated, supinated, whether you're using even no load, that muscle activates. Whereas the brachyradialis and bicep brachii are most active when they're encountering resistance. So as soon as you encounter resistance, it engages the bicep brachii and also the brachyradialis. All right, so that's enough about elbow flexion from the anatomy standpoint. What do we need to do in a gym situation? Well, let me talk about something before I kind of talk about movement patterns that are going to help you build your biceps. Do you ever look at biceps and muscle, right? It's very rarely that you see a man build their biceps, just their biceps on their own. They don't walk around with these massive biceps, right? And here's my point. When it comes to building muscle, I look at your whole body as one unit. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're looking to build your biceps, you also got to build the rest of your physique. What I find as a coach is that when you have a program that is encompassing all the musculature in the body, then the arms are going to correspond with that. So it's very rarely do you see a program that just specializes in arm training having these massive arms. You do have to bring up other muscle groups as well. So what I'm trying to say, if you bring your legs up, you bring your back and chest up, typically, depending on the right movement patterns and the nutrition profile is there and the recovery is there, we should see an increase in bicep. Now, what the research is showing, when you're training your biceps, what they're saying is to train the muscle in a length and range. What does that mean? So let's use the preacher curl as an example. Preacher curl is a great example because what you're doing when you start, you never start in this top position. You always want to start in a fully lengthened position on the preacher curl. So what they're showing in the research is that you're going to put more hypertrophy stimulus on the bicep if it's in a fully lengthened position. It's good to know. Another thing too that they picked up on the EMG is that by slowing down your eccentrics is more bicep brachii activation. So don't be shy to slow down your eccentrics. Now what's interesting about brachioradialis is that obviously it functions in neutral and in pronation. But what they're shown in the research is that it gets a lot of activation in supination. So it's actually a good idea to focus on, as you're curling up, let's say you're using a barbell curl, that you're getting tremendous amount of activation on brachioradialis. Another thing to think about when you're training your biceps, and this is one thing I tell a lot of guys, watch how you pick the dumbbell up. If I pick up this 10-pound dumbbell and I'm just going to arbitrarily swing it up and down, how am I holding the dumbbell? I learned this through Eric Seifert, muscle activation specialist, and he's a therapist at Pure Muscle and Fitness in Burlington, Ontario. And what he told me was the way you grab the dumbbell. Now, most of the time, I don't even look at that, I just grab it. But what he said is to make sure that you've got a healthy grip before you grip that barbell, whether you grip the dumbbell or the machine. Make sure that you've got the best grip possible. That makes sense, right? Another thing too that you want to bring to your attention is when you're on a preacher curl as an example, right? Preacher curl being at the shoulder is in flexion, right? So if it's in flexion, I'm going to supposedly activate the short head of the bicep more when it's in shoulder flexion. That's interesting. So when I'm on that preacher curl and I'm in shoulder flexion, right? What the research is showing is that at some point when you get to the top, the tension starts to come away, right? So let's say I'm on the preacher curl and I'm getting to the top, right? Where's the force coming from? Well, the force is going down, right? There's no force going that way. What you could do with lighter weight actually, and this is just with lighter weight, just something to think about, is to bend the wrist a little bit. All right, now the tension's always going to be going this way. Whereas if I'm here, the load's going down. And generally speaking, when you're doing a barbell or a dumbbell curl, it says I've got a dumbbell in my hand. I've got this dumbbell, 10-pound dumbbell, and I'm just doing alternating dumbbell curls standing as an example. If I get to the top, right, the load's coming down, right? So there's not much going on at the bicep, right? Even if you come up into shoulder flexion, which by the way, is part of bicep training. So if you've got this little bit of shoulder flexion, it's not generally a bad thing. You just don't want to go too high up, otherwise you're going to start to introduce a little bit of pecs and a little bit of anterior part of the shoulder. So if you've got a little bit of shoulder flexion, it's not a bad thing, okay? So, but if you also want to keep your elbow tucked and not get any shoulder flexion, that's okay too. So there's no right or wrong way here. Anyway, so if you're curling a weight, right, you're doing alternating dumbbell curls, and I've got my left hand here and I'm curling up. Again, where's the tension? There's not much going on at the top here. So what you could do, and this is something that I play around with some of the clients in the gym, is I will elevate them with their heel elevation with a couple of 5-pound plates on each side of their feet. Elevate their feet so that way they're leaning forward. Now if I'm curling now and I'm leaning forward, there's way more tension being activated at the bicep brachii. It's very interesting just by shifting forward. So what I do now personally, I don't do heavy weights anymore with bicep anymore, but I'll drop the load and I'll just stay in a little bit of spinal flexion, and I'm finding that I'm getting constant tension, not just from the bottom to mid-range, but also in this top position, which for years in my pro career as a bodybuilder, I always found out why I couldn't get any tension using free weight. With obviously the machines and the cable machine, you can get a tremendous amount of tension, but I'm just talking specifically to bicep training using dumbbells or barbells. Just shifting your body weight forward or having a little bit of heel elevation will basically change the game. And this way you're going to 10x your bicep training because you're creating constant tension. Now in the research they're talking about constant tension doesn't really matter. I disagree. I believe, just from anecdotal and working with a lot of clients over the years, I've seen their muscles change, I've seen their biceps change just from these little tweaks that I'm giving you. You're probably going to ask me what would be the most optimal. Let's say you've got you respect time and you want to get the most bang for your buck and you want efficiency in the gym for bicep training. What pieces of equipment would give you the best bang for your buck? Would it be free weight? Would it be machines? Would it be cables? I believe a combination of all three would probably do the trick. However, if you're short on time, what would give me the best bang for the buck? The number one movement pattern, what they're showing in the research, is the EZ bar. So the EZ bar, or the W bar as they call it in some countries, just having that semi-neutral grip allows you to get more activation for bicep brachii, brachyradialis and brachialis. Just with the EZ bar, you hit all three. So wouldn't you want to hit all three? I know that way when I'm training, my arms are going to be way more complete. And it showed when you're using the EZ bar, on the EMG showed that it scored the highest using a EZ bar as opposed to doing barbell or a dumbbell. It just scored the highest. I don't know if that's any truth, or if they changed that, or if they've done any more research on it, but that's where I'm at right now, currently thinking about personally, especially being someone that if you've got shoulder injuries and you find that getting into supination is really, really hard. Let's say you do bent over barbell rows in a supinated manner and you just can't get that grip properly because you've got internal rotation problems of the shoulder joint, then you could look at doing a semi-neutral grip like an EZ bar, which will be way beneficial for you. And in fact, what I would do if I were in your shoes and take the ego right out of the equation is to keep your back erect against the wall. And this way there's no room for cheating. You can, in fairness, actually put yourself slightly forward in this position with the EZ bar and then put your glutes up against the wall, and now you can't go anywhere. So what I'm trying to say to you, does heavy weight benefit the biceps, especially for the mature lifter? I think we've got to think about training the biceps a little bit more intelligently instead of always going towards load. So what I want you to start doing is maybe pulling back on the load a little bit more and generating that term, my muscle connection, by using some of these strategies like the preacher curl, staying in the length and range, starting in the length and range in the preacher curl, slowing down eccentrics, that's what the bicep brachii loves. And also looking at, if you're doing any standing movements, why not lean slightly forward, brace your trunk, stabilize, or have a little bit of heel elevation and allowing you to get into a little bit of hip flexion, so that way you can generate constant tension on your biceps. Doing those three things alone, my opinion, is going to transform everything for you. You're going to start to see the needle move forward. You're going to start to see some tremendous growth in the bicep department. However, we don't want to cause any imbalances, so we have to, more importantly, evenly distribute all the stimulus in the gym, so that way our structure and our musculature, it has symmetry and it has balance. And that's what I'm all about. I think one thing I see a lot in the gym today in North America is a lot of men that are looking to build muscle always seem to gravitate towards doing a lot of chest work. And I think that causes imbalances, right? You're in constant protraction, you get pains in your elbow, maybe in your shoulder, then you get this burning sensation in your rhomboids or underneath the scapular area. And it can get worse and worse and worse. And then when you start getting these shoulder problems, that's usually a clue that you've already got issues with the shoulder, which could, I'm not saying it will, but it could potentially turn into some type of pec strain or even a pec tear, which is what we want to stay clear of. So what I'm trying to get you to do is look at your physique as a sculptor would, right? You're just chiseling away and bringing up certain movements or bringing up certain muscle groups in order to balance out your frame and balance out your structure. That's all I got really. That's all I wanted to share with you today. Biceps are, I'm afraid to say, there is a lot of genetic makeup involved, right? Genetics does matter. However, what I will say, look at how your biceps, look at where the origin is, look at where the insertion is, right? And look at just your bicep length. Are you someone that has a long bicep? An example of that would be Kevin Leroney. I have a very short bicep. I've got a tremendous peak to my biceps. That's just genetics. I've got very short bicep heads, whereas Kevin Leroney has a very long head. My partner Jasmine has tremendous arm development, and she has amazing triceps, but her biceps are actually very, very long, whereas mine are very, very short. So that's something that you've got to look into. You've got to look at where your muscles insert and also where the origin of the muscles are, right? So that's important too, and that's why I brought it to your attention at the beginning of this presentation that I'm doing in my den here, in my own office here downstairs. Anyway, that's it for me. If you got some value from this, let me know. Try out these techniques, give them a go. I didn't want to do anything in the gym today. I just wanted to talk to you today. I'm hoping that you can implement these ideas. Grab a pen and paper, write them down, watch this video back, and see over time. You've got to give it an ample amount of time, like I would say 90 days of consistent work, and really working on your form, really working on getting that precision reps. You know, when you're throwing a dartboard and you want to hit the bullseye, right? It takes precision, and that's what we're looking for in the gym. Is I'm looking for you to start looking at getting precision reps and making all of the reps look the same, right? We call that the standardization of the stimulus. That's it for me, Coach Troy Brown, signing off. Any value, any feedback, please leave a comment. Please like the video, but also please subscribe as always if it's giving you value. And also, more importantly, share it with somebody that you really respect and who also wants to bring up their arm development. That's it for me. Cheerio, governor.